Thank you, everyone. Welcome to ICRW, so many family members home as we send a family member on her way. And I thank members of the board. ICRW Uganda is represented here today by Jackie Smith, who is on the board of ICRW Uganda. And of course, we have Jake Aslan and Patience involved from the global board. And we have a short program today. And after we have a few readings and short speeches, we're going to go out and we're going to celebrate Stella. And we'll do that with juice and coffee and Danish and just good conversation. And I hope I can get through this little moment. I'm prepared. These aren't easy things to do. Because on Wednesday, September 5th, Stella Mukasa, our dear sister, friend, and colleague, passed after a long battle with pancreatic cancer. She continued to work with ICRW through her illness until the final days when her body, not her spirit, failed her. Several of us were really very privileged to be at her side during those final days, loving her and supporting her and comforting her family and friends who had gathered to pass with her on that journey. We mourn her loss. We have buried her in a lovely spot on her family farm in Uganda. She is at peace. Today we celebrate her life, our bright, shining star, our tireless women's rights champion, our deeply human Stella. Stella Mukasa. Before I ever met her, her reputation preceded her. Human rights lawyer by training, a women's rights activist by nature, Stella sought to improve the human condition and focused her energies on eradicating the causes and devastating impacts of gender-based violence. She is revered in Uganda. And I can tell you, and Cleopatra, who is our acting regional director in Uganda, can tell you the number of people who follow the funeral cortege through the city. Thousands of people. And why is she revered? Because throughout the region, her tireless efforts to create and enforce gender-responsive laws and policies, in mobilizing support for gender-responsive constitutions in Uganda and Rwanda, created a different legal foundation for women's rights across the region. Stella joined ICRW in 2012, thanks to Mary Ellsberg, who was our Vice President for Research at the time, and took up leadership of ICRW's program of research on violence, rights, and inclusion. In 2015, she was appointed Regional Director for Africa and returned to her home country of Uganda to open the office in Kampala in 2016. Under her care and guidance, ICRW expanded its influence and impact, launching new work on violence against children, strengthening capabilities of grassroots organizations addressing gender-based violence, and advising government, multilateral, and nonprofit stakeholders working to end violence. And tragically, her candle was snuffed out far too early. We had so much more to do. I would like to now offer a poem to Stella. This is the way I would like to think of her passing, with apologies to Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. All people have stars. All people have stars. They are not the same things for different people. For some who are travelers, the stars are guides. For others, they are no more than little lights in the sky. For others who are scholars, they are problems. But all these stars are silent. You alone will have stars as no one else has them. In one of the stars, I shall be living. In one of them, I shall be laughing. And so it will be as if all the stars will be laughing when you look at the sky at night. You, only you, will have stars that can laugh. And when your sorrow is comforted, time soothes all sorrows. You will be content that you have known me. You will always be my friend. You will want to laugh with me. And you will sometimes open your window, so for that pleasure, it will be as if, in place of the stars, I have given you a great number of little bells that you have to laugh. Thank you, Stella. And now, I would like to invite Patience Lillian Hall to give a reading in the tradition that Stella held dear to her heart.
Thank you very much, Sarah, and thank you everyone for being here. As we all know, and as Sarah just articulated incredibly well, Stella was a champion and the tireless duo for others. In life, they're cheerleaders and they're players on the field. Stella was both. As a board member, when I first joined, Stella would quietly tell me that she liked the way I championed one thing or another, cheering me on in a quiet way. As a sub member, Stella did the hard work of taking on the big tasks, including working on opening ICRW's Africa Regional Office, and then delivering for all of us in a fairly short period of time. Well, Stella leaves a big space in our hearts, and those who knew her and worked with her would realize that there's a big capacity gap that's happening now. She dedicated her life's work and mission to the vision of helping others. Stella's commitment to changing the lives of women and girls came from a core, and it is from the very core of our hearts that we simply say, until later, our friend. And I was at the hospital with Sarah the weekend before Stella passed on. And even in her pain, you could still see Stella's strength. I know that Stella was a person of incredible faith, and in honor of that, I wanted to read a book, a scripture from the book of Proverbs, chapter 31, verses 10 through 31. It is called The Wife of the Noble Character. Excuse me. Yeah, I can't prepare. A wife of noble character who can find, she is worth far more than rubies. Her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. She selects wool and flax and works with eager hands. She's like the merchant ships, bringing in food from afar. She gets up while it is still night. She provides food for her family and portions for female servants. She considers a field and buys it. Out of her earnings, she plants a vineyard. She sets about her work vigorously. Her arms are strong for her tasks. She sees that her trading is profitable and her lamp does not go out at night. In her hands, she holds the staff and grasps the spindle with her fingers. She opens her arms to the poor and extends her hands to the needy. When it snows, she has no fear for her household, for all of them are clothed in scarlet. She makes coverings for a bed. She is clothed in fine linen and purple. She makes linen garments and sells them, and supplies the merchants with sashes. She's clothed with strength and dignity. She can laugh at the days to come. She speaks with wisdom and faithful instructions on her tongue. She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Their children arise and call her blessed. Her husband also, he praises her. Many women do noble things, but you, Stella, you surpass them all. Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Stella did fear the Lord. Honor her for all her hands have done, and let her works bring her praise to the city gates. I think this is a passage that truly captures Stella's essence. Stella was a woman of God. She did amazing things for children, for girls. She did amazing things for her husband and for the community that we represent here, for women and girls. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paige. And now I'd like to invite Jackie Stella, representing the ICRW Uganda Board, as well as her role as a philanthropist and civic activist.
As introduced, my name is Jacqueline. Stella and I go way back. We were in the same high school, the Union Girls High School in Uganda. She was a few years ahead of me. And you know how it is. She was one of those girls who we all aspired to be like because she was so prim and proper. Yeah, and also being younger. When she knew your name, it was that kind of feeling. So yes, Stella knew my name. And we both went on to do law degrees. We're both members of FIDA, Uganda, which is the Association of Women Lawyers in Uganda, and therefore worked together on many advocacy campaigns for women's rights to change the laws in our country. And I remember last year there was an unfortunate spate of random killings of women. We just didn't know why, but almost every 3 days a woman would end up murdered and sometimes raped before murdered. And so Stella called me and said, we can't just sit by and do nothing. So I'm leaving it in your hands, just tell me and I will, so she was that kind of person. Let's do something, let's not sit around and do nothing. And I last texted with her on 31st July, told her I was coming to DC in October, and I told her I would come check on her. And it was not to be, which is a sad thing, but I am happy that I am here. My very first consulting job was with ICRW. Krista, while working here, her and I worked on paralegals, a paralegal study which became a minor for training paralegals. And then a few years on, about 2-3 years later, I think it was Krista, anyway, someone from ICRW called me and said, do you know Stella, and can you tell us about her? And I'm like, she should be the one. I'm like, I know who you're asking me to talk about. We held her in such esteem. So it was an honor. It's like, it's like asking me with any. She's my big sister. And so I was glad and honored. Like, you should hire her yesterday. Hire 2 of her. So anyhow, when I think of Stella, her attributes can be summed up in the letters of her name. S. Stella was a strategist, a consummate strategist. She never took no for an answer. Impossible was never in her vocabulary. Indeed, she was driven by the motto of our high school, never give up. She always found a way up, a way around, a way out for the many causes and issues she believed in. T for thinker. Stella was one of the great thinkers of our time. And how do we know? Because she wrote. She had a passion for research. She was always questioning, always probing, and intent on finding out. She was always looking for evidence to back her assertions and propositions. And oh my, did she have a beautiful mind. She was sharp and witty and very deep and grounded. And she taught us the central role of evidence in activism. E for excellence. Stella was the definition and embodiment of excellence, whether in speech, in grooming, in writing, in consulting, in presentation. Excellence was her trademark. L for loyal. Stella was loyal to the sisterhood, to the women's movement, to feminism, to her ideals, to her values, to her friends, to her family, and to her calling. You could always count on Stella, whether she was with us in Uganda or working abroad. She was loyal. You knew she had your back. You knew she had your back, and you knew you could count on her. She was loyal to her word. Stella, the other L, was lovable. Who didn't love Stella? Her smile, her grace, her elegance, her eloquence, her humility, her passion, her presence. Stella was a beautiful soul that touched many lives. And A for activist. Stella's politics with a small p were very clear. She stood for justice. She stood for the rights of the poor and marginalized. She confronted negative expressions of power that kept people oppressed. She was an activist in all the spaces she was in, whether speaking to governments or to grassroots people. She was an activist for truth, for positive change, for a fairer world for all, especially women. We shall miss Stella dearly, but we promise to carry on her work for and passion for justice. We owe it to her as her fellow sister. We owe it to her as our fellow sister, friend, fighter.
Mary.
First of all, I'd just like to say thank you so much, ICRW, for putting on this event and giving us an opportunity to talk together and cry together and see our old friends and lots of new friends. I was looking at a picture of ICRW staff the other day and realized that I didn't know, but I didn't do it. So it's wonderful to see how we've grown. So I knew Stella probably less than most of you, but she still made a huge impression on me and impression on my heart. I guess it was about 7 or 8 years ago. I heard about her from Raising Voices, from Laura Michaud and some friends at Sedoviv, who said, oh, our friend Stella's in town, maybe you should really meet her and she'll bring her to us, and yeah, I'd love to talk to you sometime. And you know how she was very sort of humble. She didn't say she was looking for a job, but she'd been out of work for about 6 months and looking for something. And I think you all know she came here because they got a lottery visa, and she and Apollo wanted the girls to have more opportunities, and that was a huge sacrifice for her to leave her community and her work and everything and come here where she hardly knew anybody, and these 3 little girls, and all of this really was the idea that she wanted something better for her girls and to separate from Apollo, who wasn't able to come. And so for all those years they were going back and forth. And so we said, well, why don't you come by and have lunch with us? We'll have a little brown bag, we'd love to meet you, but not big expectations. I knew that she was this great lawyer who would work on the GBV law that had just passed in Uganda. And so I was excited to meet her, but no other expectations. And she came and we were just having this brown bag. She started to talk about her work and her commitment to women's rights and what she thought needed to be done in the future and strategies. And Catherine and I were just kind of looking at each other, huh? And right? We were just kind of thinking the same thought. And as we wrapped up and we're like, so are you working right now? Are you available? And like, when could you be available? We had the space. We've been looking for somebody for the GBV director, and it was just so obvious that Stella was like, the one. Yeah. Literally walking out the door, we were kind of checking her out and saying, well, would you like to work here? And like, when did you start? Maybe Monday. We called you up. And it's like so obvious that we needed to have her, that she would make this huge contribution. And, and that's how it started. And I guess I don't think Sarah was at the meeting, but we must have run to you right away. Right? We're just like, so that was just such a privilege to know her a little bit. We made one trip to Uganda together. And then sort of out of the blue, I ended up having an opportunity to leave to go to George Washington, which I hadn't expected, and so suddenly I only worked with her for a few months, and we both lamented that we'd had so little time to actually spend time together and work together, which we've both been really looking forward to. But interestingly, even though it had been only a few months, we really maintained our friendships, and we saw each other, several times a year. And when Paula was in town, we, go out with him, and I saw the girls, here and there, and she was just, as you all said, she was just amazing. She was, on top of being so brilliant and so lovely and so joyful and so committed to women's rights, she was also just really modest. Like, we were in a car in Uganda, and she picks up the phone and she's like, "Oh yes, well, I'll see you, I'll call you right back." And it's like, "Oh, that was the Queen of Uganda." And, just like discovering this, little things would show up, that Apollo is the advisor to the King of Uganda. The Queen calls her up, to ask like what she should wear tomorrow. It was just like this stuff that she would never brag about or say anything, but it was just kind of her life. It was just sort of amazing. And these amazing little girls that she was raising and working full time and traveling, and oh my God, I just loved watching them grow up and seeing like how she was managing, and then finally she was finally getting to go back, and like it was like things were really coming together. She was so excited to be going back to Uganda. I heard from her, I saw her once. She was just really, really happy, and so I was really happy to see that, and getting her first daughter off to college. So basically, I feel, I'm thinking about it, I feel sorry and grateful. Sorry that I wasn't able to work more with her. I feel really sorry that I wasn't by her side when she died, and that I didn't realize it or didn't hear it somehow, and knew that weekend before that she was sick, and had written, called up Apollo but didn't hear back, and said to Patricia, "Oh, do you think I should come by?" And just kind of like, it just never occurred to me that that was actually my last chance. And when she died a few days later, I just felt so filled with remorse, and I'm sure that many others do also. But I feel, when people in Uganda told me, so many people didn't even know she was sick. I think it was part of her optimism, that her modesty, not wanting to sort of cause a fuss or to have people make a big deal, and her optimism that things were going to be okay, that she was going to continue. I imagine all of those things, which makes me imagine that she, in her heart, knew that we were all with her, and didn't feel, and I know she didn't feel alone because you were with her. And so I do feel grateful that I'll always be able to carry her with me. And I feel really grateful to you and ICRW. I feel grateful to Sarah and to Catherine and to Patricia and to all of you who took care of her. And I know you are doing it on behalf of all of us. And so when I went to the funeral, and she was surrounded by so many people who also had her. She was sick. So I think we all have this kind of, some of us have this kind of shock and bereavement that we were there, and really she was absolutely accompanied. And so again, I would like to thank my friends at ICRW. I feel as though you did it obviously for yourself and for her, but I feel that you also did it for the rest of us. I really appreciate that, and I really appreciate that we're having this opportunity to share together. So. And basically, beyond the shock and the grief and all of that, I feel a lot of joy for having known her and for being able to carry her with me. So, thank you.
Gosh, if I hadn't cried before. I
didn't even bring the next.
What Mary says is absolutely the situation. Fred has just joined us, and Fred's family was key to Stella's care during her illness, and it's lovely of you to join us today. And that was part of the funeral committee that helped to organize the prayer service that was held out in German. So thank you for coming this morning, it's really lovely. But exactly what Mary was saying, is that Stella was very, very private about this health issue, and I do believe it's her eternal optimism that it was going to be okay and that we would continue. And so in that, it was, I think for everyone, it was a brusque departure. Now I'd like to ask one more speaker, and then we have a televised speaker coming in from Uganda. Brian.
Sure. Hi everybody, my name is Brian Heilman. I joined ICRW first in the India office in 2009 and then worked both there and here until 2015. Also so nice to see some old faces and some new faces, and can proudly say that I was there in the historic brown bag Stella for the first time, which it does feel kind of momentous now looking back. It's those life-changing moments you don't realize when you're in them. And I'm really glad, Mary, that you were so just open with us and also spoke to the joy that it was to be around Stella with her, and maybe to lift the spirits a little bit. I was thinking of you and Stella and the girls and a bunch of my friends, some of whom in this room, at my talent show birthday party, just like dancing together. And like that's one of those memories that I'll really cherish about what it was like to be part of the ICRW team at that time, just so joyful. So I worked directly with Stella at the time it was called the Gender Violence and Rights Portfolio, specifically with a lot of work in East Africa and the Pacific Islands and other places. And maybe the collaboration that I will carry most closely that Stella and I worked the most on was we created this violence against women self-assessment tool that helped all these grassroots violence prevention organizations in Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania kind of like take a pause and look at their institutional practices. And then Stella and I and a pretty dynamic team of folks worked really closely with those organizations around the region, and to be able to do that with her was just so amazing. So that's my main message to offer, that working with Stella, given what we know about her, was really an honor that a white guy from Wisconsin just never deserved, and really a joy that I'll cherish forever. I just have three lessons, I guess, about that I'm trying to carry from working with Stella. The first was Stella was dynamic. People have spoken to this, but just to reemphasize, I mean, she, in addition to being a women's human rights defender and all the great work that we knew that she did, she was also a pig farmer. She was also a proprietor of this beautiful boutique hotel that I got a nice tour of at one point. And of course, a mentor to so many. I mean, walking into, I'm sure Ali was there at certain points, walking into yet another organization in East Africa, and then all of a sudden there's a staff member who like Stella had been mentoring since they were in high school. And so just like a real leader and generous mentor to so many people, as well as being a legitimate public figure and friend to the king and queen. And so I guess that's kind of a lesson that I'm trying to carry. Maybe others would too, that Stella didn't limit the breadth of her interests and her passions, and maybe we don't need to do that. Even though sometimes we kind of hear that we should. The second one is Stella was so kind. Obviously, she was an incredibly strong woman, strong personality, but as I'm mentioning, walking into rooms and watching people's eyes light up and just watching people revere Stella, and knowing that the reverence that people felt for her wasn't because she held some hierarchical position or was some kind of like fierce figure in that way, but rather that it was really her kindness and generosity that made her such a brilliant leader. So that's an important lesson I think that we can carry, that however much technical brilliance you have, however many accomplishments you have, it just resonates with people and makes you that much more powerful of a leader if you're able to to be fun to be around also, and kind. And finally, that Stella was a world builder, a builder of new worlds. I really believe that. And when you shape the laws that govern the lives and opportunities and realities of your country, you're really bringing a new world into existence. And you can tell that I hung out with Stella and Apollo plenty because I'm almost compelled to talk about what it means to be part of tribal leadership in addition to the hierarchy of your country. And without going way into that, when you're part of the cabinet of the administration of your tribe, right, and kind of pushing at the seams of what it means to be a citizen with multiple identities, when you really demand that the future of your country, of Africa, be less and less beholden to the colonial past and the quirks of pen strokes making the boundaries of where your identity should be shaped, that in a very powerful sense, you are working to bring a new world into existence. And I was so moved by that. So yes, finally to conclude, just that Stella's example for me encourages me to imagine and to bring about radical new ways of being in the world. And that's really what makes the loss so profound, is that when you lose a world builder, then to an extent you lose the world they were building. And that's what makes this really, really hard to carry, but also I feel inspired to pick up that work and to create those radical new ways of being in our work and our personal lives. So thank you so much for the opportunity to speak and be here.
Joe, is Cleopatra?
Yeah.
Cleopatra Muyenji is translated from Nairobi. She's our acting region director for Africa.
Such a self-muted.
Cleopatra, are you there? Oh, there we go. Kindly go ahead.
Can you see me? No. Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak. Good morning to all of you. It's later in the day here in East Africa. I'd like to briefly talk about how I first met Stella. I mean, everyone who spoke before me has mentioned her drive, her passion. And I actually first met Stella with Brian, the project he mentioned in East Africa. I was working for one of the organizations that they worked with. And I remember sitting in our conference room with Stella across from me. And she was this very quiet, gracious presence that was fantastic at getting people to question themselves, getting people to ask themselves why they were doing the things they were doing or the way that they were doing things. And that first meeting with Stella, then it grew into a professional relationship where we kept in touch over the years before I started working with ICRW a year and a bit ago. And what attracted me to ICRW, as well as Stella, because Stella had a lot to do with this, was her vision for Africa and her vision for the African woman and what ICRW could do to enhance the life and the livelihoods of African women. She had this amazingly engaging vision for all women in Africa, from the most marginalized rural woman or refugee even, all the way to the leadership that women on the continent should be providing and should be displaying for all the women out there. And so that drew me to working with her. And then when I started working with ICRW and working with Stella, I then began to realize how much she touched people. Everywhere she went, people knew Stella. It was, Stella, how are you? Stella, you're back. Everyone knew Stella. Everywhere you went, everyone knew Stella. And like you said, you're in awe of somebody who is so humble and yet is so well known all across our region. And along with that grace and that presence and that drive, there were many things that she didn't share as much as we know. And like Brian said, she had rhythm. Now, something that was mentioned, which Jackie maybe didn't touch on. Jackie went to school with her, like she said, but Stella was a petite young lady at Gayaza. And from all that the women from Gayaza were saying at her funeral, was Stella had these tiny, small hands that could really beat out a rhythm on a big drum. And Stella had rhythm. And she displayed this rhythm to us when we were in Kampala last year with, I think, Patricia Downers was there. She took us out for a meal, and there was a troupe of performers playing the drums, dancing, and showing us all different types of Ugandan culture and dance. And Stella stood up and said, "Can I join you?" And all the drummers are men. So they're looking at this petite woman and wondering what she will do when she gets to the drums. And she goes to the biggest drum in the room. And with her small hands, she beat out a rhythm. I mean, Stella could get people dancing. And for that, I mean, that was another side of her personality that didn't come out at work, but when you got her in a more social place, she really did show that side of herself. She had a wicked sense of humor as well. And she was compelling with her dream for ICRW Africa. It's very sad that we are losing our leader so early in our journey. She had a dream. And whenever we would get discouraged or whenever we'd hear bad news, she'd be like, this is just a small bump. It's just a small bump on this long journey, which will be glorious. She kept reminding us how good things were going to be for ICRW Africa, and how ICRW Africa was so well positioned in the region, the work we do, and at the right time. So I think that cheerleader, the leader we had there, we will miss greatly. So she leaves a legacy that you've all mentioned, and she also leaves a hole where we were, where our offices are housed at the Human Rights House in Kampala. Like you said, she was a very private person. So, and I think, and I agree that she really did feel that this was a fight she was going to win, and it was only a matter of time that she would be back with us. So when we heard the news, there was a lot of shock at the Human Rights House in Kampala. And as a testament to the number of people who she touched, we had a memorial service for her, which was well attended by members of different organizations in the building, as well as all the other funeral rites that happened in Kampala, where I was amazed by the outpouring of grief as well as support for the family that made you realize how well Stella was regarded. And she will be missed. She was a quiet woman who touched very many. She had like they mentioned, her petite frame with being able to beat huge drums and beat out a rhythm that could call the whole school. So she had this quiet presence that drew attention. She had a soft voice that spoke volumes. And although she had small steps because of her size, she left huge footprints. So we will really miss Stella, both professionally and personally. And we as ICRW Africa will be working hard to meet the vision that she kept reminding us about when she was here with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Cleopatra. Very, very kind.
Fred, can we prevail upon you for a few words?
Okay, thank you. First of all, I'm sorry I'm late. I've been retired for over 15 years and I live in Fairfax, so you can imagine the shock of the traffic jam. Let alone looking for parking. Otherwise, I meant to get here, but I thought at night. But yeah. Thank you so much for this opportunity to celebrate Stella's life. I knew Stella for just over 13 years, really. I met her, I retired from the World Bank 13 years ago, and I bought her a house. It was supposed to be a retirement house. I didn't know Stella until they were, before you call it, housewarming. But I knew Apollo because of my connection with the king and the kingdom. So I invited Apollo, and he came with Stella. That's the first time I met her. This was July 2005. And the rest, I would like to say the rest is this way, but we connected and became friends, family. When they moved here with the girls in 2009, because now we retired, so I had the time. Because of my connection with Apollo, they asked them, how's them initially as they were settling in. And I came to know Stella even more closer. As a humble family lady, committed to the kingdom, committed to her passion working for women's rights, but also dedicated to her daughters and of course to her husband. And I was very glad that as much time as I had, I was able to help her navigate this area. But that also gave me an opportunity to know her. Luckily, my wife was still working, so at least I had the time, and we had the boys, but it's almost the same age with the girls. Our youngest is actually their oldest. Unfortunately, my wife passed away when we moved. Well, before we went there. 2012, Sarah was still here. We had to move to Geneva, and we ended up keeping our stuff, some of the stuff, stuff that you call it, in the house, because at that time they had moved to Maryland, and she took some of our stuff, the piano, the TV, and and at that time the intention was the girls to learn. So anyway, we moved to Geneva, and my wife gets sick. And the outpouring concerns that Stella showed for our family. So I remember all those things, but all along, talking to her about this and that, she was always passionate about women's rights. And we always talk about Uganda, what was going on with women in Uganda, and the inheritance, the unfairness of the system, the culture, and whatnot. And so that's when I even got to know Stella and her passion even more. And as a family, we certainly miss her. I ask all of you, and I'm sure you have done this, and to keep the family in your prayers. Having lost my wife with the 3 boys, the youngest at that time was 18. That Apollo had lost his wife and mother for the kids. The oldest is 20. I don't know what, I try to keep talking to Apollo more often, but he's a busy guy, he's all over the place. I think he would be okay because being home with support. But it's the girls I worry most because they're all over the place. Asena is back to UK for her studies. Angela is back in South Africa in Swaziland for her high school. And Rhea is home. I wouldn't want to stay at home alone, but yeah. So that's why I say we really need to keep the family in our prayers and support, especially the girls. Luckily, they are all, like I said, at home, our cultural setup, we will have some support, even the, once in a while, table game. As ICRW providing the opportunity for Stella to practice her passion, to be radiant and exemplary person to host, to also not only the women, we want. And Lisa, it's also that I could not go to attend, but that's a different story. But I'm also glad that I was able to use the family relationship when she passed and even the days after to really, help them navigate the system here. Thank you so much for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we heard at St. Christopher during the prayer service that piano got a lot of use because it was the choir mistress who taught the 3 girls piano. So we know it's making music wherever it is now. And Fred has given us some really great homework, isn't it? We all have something that we can do as we leave the doors today. We can write to Apollo, who is a very busy guy. He uses WhatsApp. It's a good way to get to him directly. He does read his email. Those 3 girls are wonderful. A lot of you know them. They're strong girls because they're the daughters of Stella and Apollo, but they still need our support. So let's reach out to them, see how we can be helpful to them. More importantly, let's be so grateful for a life well lived, a life that was given in service, a life that inspires us to move on. So I'd like to close now. For the folks online, thank you so much for joining us for this celebration of life. You are tuning in from around the world, and very special thanks to Cleopatra Muhenji for speaking to us from Nairobi. That closes our service. I invite everyone to partake of some libation and have a little bit of networking before we move on with our day. Thank you so much.